Hey, good morning. It's Monday morning. I'm in my brother's house in Baltimore. Uh, got in yesterday, spending a little time helping out my family with stuff this morning, and then heading over to DC for the event, which starts this afternoon and will continue tomorrow with the live stream you'll be watching. I'm sorry this is getting to you Monday. I tried to get it to you over the weekend, and I've had a lot of trouble figuring out how to make a video that I could get into Moodle. I've done a lot of YouTube tutorials, and one of you probably knows an easy way and might be able to help me out with that. So I'm sorry, I'll keep this really brief so it doesn't take a ton of time between now and tomorrow's class. I hope you're well. I hope you had a good weekend. Um, Here's just what I wanted to say. You're going to be watching a portion of a live stream tomorrow of an event, and the context for that event you read in the link that I sent you, which gives you kind of a formal press release announcement style of it. Here's the context within which that event happens and how I think it relates to our class and teaching artistry and teaching theater in classrooms and building a career and a viable kind of employment trajectory for yourself and a sort of satisfaction trajectory for yourself in relation to being a teaching artist or a classroom theater teacher. I think we've started to talk in our first couple weeks about the variety of contexts within which an arts educator, a theater educator might work. I know quite a few of you are really excited about, passionate about teaching theater in classrooms, which is beautiful and has made the class already so energizing and nourishing for me. It's pretty great to be in that room with the group of you. Um, so there's lots of folks around the U.S. and around the world, but we'll focus on the U.S. who um, train to teach in the arts or are sort of practicing artists and get involved in teaching artistry, both because they love it and because it helps sort of complement, supplement their employment opportunities as a straight practicing artist. So you have different tracks that bring people into this world. Some start, as many of you, just wanting to teach the arts. And some start wanting to be practicing artists and make their living at it and realize that they're going to build a more satisfying life for themselves if teaching artistry is also part of their sort of employment portfolio. And you end up with the best, teachers in the world coming sort of from both those starting places. People fall in love with what they fall in love with and have beautiful experiences. In the past several decades, a number of classroom artists and teaching artists, in their curiosity about how to deploy their teaching artistry skills outside of classrooms, have begun more and more to look for the spaces where groups of people are gathered, either because they are specifically interested in the arts or very commonly because they have other outcomes that they are working for in those group spaces. And it turns out that an artist, that either somebody running that group space became interested in the possibility of the arts, or an artist found a way to kind of get in there and prove that there was something they could contribute. And it's really opened up fields. And let me be more specific. You have librarians who have found collaborations with artists. You have folks in the sciences who have found that their lab teams gain a lot from collaborations with artists or artists in residence. You have labor movements and social justice movements who have brought artists into their communities, their circles, to help them build energy, share stories, problem solve, strategize, and coalition build, which you're going to hear me talk about a lot. And then something that's been really common for a while now and gaining steam is both medical practitioners recognizing the healing properties of the arts when deployed at an individual level. An example of this is folks who treat post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, realizing a couple decades ago, somewhere between the end of the Vietnam War and I'm going to say the Iraq War, in the early 90s, this recognition that soldiers who were struggling upon coming home, by engaging in creative activity, individually or sometimes in groups, were finding unique ways to deal with and process and move through their trauma that other counseling, psychology, and psychiatric approaches were sometimes not as successful. And this opened up an entire sort of line of inquiry at the federal government, at the National Endowment for the Arts, at Health and Human Services, where folks started saying, this is helping our returning soldiers, and we don't understand why, and we wouldn't have thought it was, but there was enough anecdotal evidence that they started doing actual studies. And those studies started to prove the healing effects and the recovery impacts on soldiers, on veterans. And that was a big moment in the 90s and early 2000s in particular. And that led to a growing body of research. And then folks in the arts and folks in health who'd always been interested in that connection pushed it further and said, well, what about the healing properties of the arts just with young people in general, in classrooms, in medical contexts, in recovery contexts? What about in adult populations in general? What about connecting it to physical therapy? What about connecting it to emotional, psychological, mental health? What about connecting it to community level, population level ideas of wellness and healing and health? And I'm going to say that around 15 years ago, when the National Endowment for the Arts started something called one name was the Wounded Warrior Project, but there were other names, Creative Forces, where they hired a guy, Bill O'Brien, and he started putting real energy and research dollars from the federal government into this. And ostensibly, it was to prove the impact, again, for the military and the Department of Defense. But he was using it to spread it across fields and collaborating with people in the health world separate from veterans. And his work, which got connected with the World Health Organization, was the beginning of a body of research. I've said research a few times. I'm going to share with you in the coming weeks a little bit. We're not going to dive so far into this rabbit hole that it sort of takes over our coming months. But I think it's an important angle. Because basically what that work has begun to do is allow people in the arts and health fields to make a very compelling case at the federal, local, and funder level, right? So federal government, local government, and philanthropies, foundations, grant-giving folks around the country, that maybe you could be funding artists to, in addition to making their art, and in addition to being in schools, to being in lots of spaces where they're helping make communities healthier and individuals healthier. This has pushed one movement called social prescribing. Tomorrow's event that you're going to watch on live stream, I don't know if they'll use the term social prescribing or not. They probably will. But one of the stealth purposes of tomorrow's meeting is there is a global movement, and the United States has folks more and more involved in it, which is that a doctor should be able to prescribe an arts experience to a patient, and insurance should reimburse for it. Crazy sounding, right? It has started to happen in other countries. It has started to happen, it's big in England and Australia and Ireland and other places. It has started to happen in the US. Stanford University, a couple months ago, started the first social prescribing for the arts program in the United States at an institutional level. It's getting a lot of attention. Someone I work with who you might see on the live stream is Dr. Jill Sankey from the University of Florida's College of Arts and Medicine. She's the #1 person in the U.S. who is pushing this movement along and is in conversation at the federal level and the global level with folks trying to make the case that we should allow the medical profession to prescribe arts experiences, particularly participatory arts experiences, not just someone going to watch dance, although yes, but someone taking a movement class, not just someone going to a gallery, yes, that too, but someone taking an art class where they're participating in creating. The health effects, the data, which I'll share with you, is rather astounding in terms of what that has to do for one's mental health in particular. So, part of the reason for tomorrow's gathering is for people in government who are not in the arts and people in particular, people in health who don't already have an inclination to engage with the arts, to get these folks hearing stories and data from others of us in the field that help move the needle and make them allies of a movement for social prescribing and a movement to allow artists to be thought of as key players within their fields and industries. I believe tomorrow, I'm not sure during the hour and a half you will be listening, or the 80 minutes, you might hear folks from health, you might hear folks from transportation, infrastructure, local government, federal government, artists. but the entire day has been set up by the chairperson of the National Endowment for the Arts, Dr. Maria Rosario Jackson. The whole day's been set up so people at the White House and in all these federal agencies will hear from people who believe in the power of the arts. And that advocacy will help move the needle forward on social prescribing and simply on loosening funding all around. Now, here's the reason, and here's kind of the last thing I'll share. If social prescribing for the arts gets systematized in the United States, a faucet would get turned on. That faucet would release billions of dollars of not just philanthropic and government money, but insurance reimbursement. It's the holy grail of health and arts. It would have a massive impact on you, on me, but really on you, because what it will mean is that 5 years from now, let's say you're working in a community, maybe you're a classroom teacher, maybe you're an artist working in a community as a teaching artist, as a performer, as a visual artist, as a director, as a choreographer. If social prescribing becomes a reality, you would be able to offer a movement workshop, an improvisation workshop, a storytelling workshop, an acting class in your community. And a member of your community, a young person or an adult, could get a prescription from their doctor to take that class as a part of a healing regimen or treatment. And Blue Cross Blue Shield or Medicare, Medicaid, or whoever's insurance one has would reimburse it, which means people could take your courses for 80 to 90% free, subsidized by the insurance industry. It would drastically alter the employment possibilities for artists across the U.S. It would drastically alter citizen access to arts participation, and it would alter the perceived value, the contributions that artists and teaching artists make in their communities. And of course, it would also alter the way that the arts were looked at as a viable career for folks going through school, and it would alter the way schools look at arts educators, theater teachers, because in addition to all the value that we know we bring, it would be a visible signal of how the market, economic systems within which we operate value the work as well. So it would be huge in a lot of ways, and many people are working very hard for that outcome. So the live streaming you're going to watch is partly about folks attempting to continue to lay the groundwork, chart the path for that sort of thing to happen. How much that will be said in the time you hear, I'm not sure, but that's in the background. That's the context. How do we make arts and health more visible, more validated, and more, not because we need the validation, we don't, but because validation means more perceived public value and more resources and funding for the work and for artists. So thanks for listening and watching. I hope you have a good Monday or Tuesday, and I hope you are able to watch that live stream tomorrow during class time. That's the assignment, that's the work, and I hope it's interesting. I'll be there. I might even send you emails from the room while it's happening. So while you're watching at home, check your email every now and then, and I might be sending class emails. Take care.